4,000 acres. And perhaps the reaction of some is, how disgusting, how can people own a village? How can we, in this modern age, have tied villages and tied cottages and so on and so forth? Well, the fact of the matter is the benefit is enormous. The benefit is that this little village of Firle is intact. It has a cricket team which has won its way through to the village cricket team finals, which is played at either the Oval or Lord's. It has a flower show which is second to none in the region. It has other community activities to which people are invited. And it does very well as a village. It's got a community. It's got a small village hall where the locals gather. It's got a village blacksmith who still operates. And the reason being is that you cannot buy a house in the village without his lordship's permission. And if you think, what a lovely little village, and it is a lovely little village, what a lovely little village, and I will buy a home here and I can come down from time to time and use it as a holiday home. No, you can't. If you buy a house in the village, you buy it to live in. And you cannot have a premises which is going to stand empty for 3/4 of the year. So it may seem to some iniquitous that the landed gentry, if you like, can still own a village, or for that matter, several villages. But the benefits are enormous. And anyway, they've been there since 1300. The Gages, the noble family that own this village, have been there for ages and ages. And they continue to live there. And they continue to do good works. And if you actually spot the family throughout history, they were great favourites at the court of Henry VIII, Queen Elizabeth I. They survived through Queen Mary and so on. And it's a fascinating story. But the village itself has several key features that I like, apart from very pretty cottages. The architecture isn't all the same. It's not a neatly laid out village. It's one that's grown over the years from medieval times. Well, in fact, longer than that, because the church is actually pre-Norman. It's a Saxon church, and it's a beautiful little church. And it's as solid today as the day it was built, some more than 1,000 years ago. It still has morning services. It still has a vicar that is known as the Mad Vicar. Peter Allen Jones, I think his name is. Peter Allen Jones. And he started out in the advertising industry, took the cloth, but became, or remained, eccentric. He's done several BBC programmes of varying natures. And he's a real character. And he fits in with that village wonderfully well. Then there is the Ram, where I had lunch in the open air yesterday, 2 meters apart. They've done their thinking. But the Ram was built somewhere around 1500. So it's pretty old as well. The food is excellent. The staff are superb. The ambience is, if you really want to go to an old-fashioned pub that hasn't been tampered with, the Ram at Firle is just great. And when we actually got there at about 12:30 to start filming, the garden and the pub were absolutely jam-packed. Everybody had come out on a very nice day to either sit at a table it's actually the old stable yard, and to sit inside in the beautiful pub surrounding itself. I've been going there on and off for, I don't know, the last 500 years. And but it's an actually beautiful pub. It's still an old traditional pub, and it serves very good beer, including Harvey's, which is the local brew and which many people around the world enjoy to this day. So that's Firle. And actually the manor house, Firle Place, is still quite magnificent, and the grounds superb and well kept. So if people are going to have tied villages, tied communities, if they're run the way that Firle is run, then I'm all for them, because they bring back a community life that is missing in many, many other places. And sometimes you have to weigh the result against the means of getting there. And democracy in many instances, in many communities, doesn't work. We've got communities which are just not worth the paper that the community name is written on. And now, around the country, we have some tied villages where the community spirit is extremely strong. Extremely strong. If I could still play cricket, I'd go and ask if I could play for them. But there we are. Nonetheless, Firle Village. The other interesting thing is that my colleague and associate, Annie, her last name is Verrill, Verrall, and the name Verrill is a proven fact by the genealogists. The name Verrill is from people who come from Firle. That's where the name originated. Nowhere else at all. From Firle. Whether it's a Norman name or whether it's a Saxon name, I'm not absolutely sure. But if you've got the name Verrill, your ancestors stemmed from Firle. No argument whatsoever. There you are. The village of Firle. Fantastic place. Let's listen to the Baroque Coffee House from Doug Maxwell. Oh, yes, we're hitting the spot this morning. That was lovely. The Baroque Coffee House, Doug Maxwell. Now, yesterday, I forgot to turn the mic on after one of the pieces of music that I played, and it is a piece of music by Yeva Surian. Yeva is a delightful lady, and her sister even more so. They are characters. She's got the most magnificent voice, and we play quite regularly her piece Flawless Mind, and we use it also on some of our documentaries because it is very haunting and very lovely. But I started to talk about the fact that they are sisters in Yerevan in Armenia. And one of the lovely stories about Yerevan is that somebody said to me when I was there, well, I've been there several times now, Somebody said to me when I was there, the only thing that we've got in Armenia are churches. Why would people want to come and see our churches? Well, the churches are quite magnificent, some of them, because they're cut into rocks. The Armenians who embraced Christianity, they were the first country to embrace Christianity as a state religion, and that was way back in sort of 500, 600. And as a consequence, they've got their own sort of version of the Vatican and that sort of thing. So it is very interesting. But the other thing they have is the Ararat brandy factory, or distillery. And they make a very fine brandy, which was Churchill's favourite. And Churchill noticed that this is a story I tried to tell you yesterday, and it was going out to nobody. I couldn't even hear it myself. Churchill noticed that the quality of the brandy was dipping a little bit. So he picked up the phone to Stalin and said, look here, my old chum, why is the quality of Ararat brandy going down? I'm not at all happy. So Stalin made a few inquiries and discovered that they'd sent the chief chemist, who actually mixed the blends and so on, to a gulag for some minor reason. And he says something against the state, I suppose, the way that everybody does at the moment, but in those days they got sent to Siberia. So Stalin very quickly got him out of the gulag, sent him back to Yerevan and said, now you make brandy to the satisfaction of my good friend Winston Churchill, or you'll go back to where you came from. And years later he was given the order of the, I think it's the Star of the Soviet Union, and all was well. And Ararat brandy remains to this day. It's made in a small distillery. It's got some beautiful rose gardens attached to it, which have been donated by various Russian presidents, because it was, of course, part of the old Soviet Union. And it's got casks. I mean, it's everything that. If we've just talked about Firle being an old village, then the Ararat brandy distillery in Yerevan, Armenia, is somewhere that you should actually go and take a look. You can go and visit it. You can take a look around. They'll take you into a boardroom and give you a little sample of the brandy, which is absolutely marvellous. They'll show you casks for their key customers, which are presidents and kings all over the world. And they're kept there, sometimes after their death, as a sort of special favour. And it's all terribly quaint and yet turning out a terrific quality product. So that's the story I was going to tell you yesterday about Yerevan, and all triggered by Yeva Suryan, who has a magnificent voice, and her sister Star Jackson, who is one of the greatest characters I've ever come across. I'm very fond of Star. She's a real character, and isn't the world missing them? But I don't think I can play any more this morning, because it's 28 minutes, and yesterday we went over by something like 30 seconds, which is naughty. We're not supposed to do that, and we shouldn't do it, and we won't do it today. We'll try and get off bang on time if we can. So just let me say that the reason for Firle is in my modern history. We were there filming yesterday for our new documentary, following on from the very successful The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town to Floods of Blood, which is the working title I've given it. Some people are starting to turn up their nose already at it, but you don't forget it easily, do you? Floods of Blood, which carries on where the first documentary left off, and looks at some more things that in this small town that have actually affected the world. It's an interesting story, and I hope that when this is ready, and it's been delayed, of course, by the virus crisis, but we're back on the job now. We're back making it, and I hope that you will, when it's ready, look at it. But if you haven't seen The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town, keep an eye open for that as well. Right you are. Here we are. We've got to go. Keith Hayes, Rouser Radio, from Lewes in East Sussex, and I'm happy to say that we were a little better this morning and didn't have great gobs of dead air. Fiddle pip.